Michael Jordan was afraid of water. The most fearless competitor who ever lived had a genuine phobia that most people never knew about. And if that surprises you, it means you only know the version of Michael Jordan that was packaged and sold to the world. The championships, the commercials, the shoes. The real story has considerably more to it than that. These are 10 secrets about Michael Jordan that most people have never heard. Secret 1: He was afraid of water. Michael Jordan was terrified of water. The fear developed after two of his close childhood friends drowned. Two separate incidents, two losses that left Jordan with a genuine phobia that stayed with him well into his adult life. But Jordan's response to fear was always the same. He eventually bought a yacht. Not to sail competitively or demonstrate fearlessness publicly, simply to force himself into proximity with the water until the relationship changed. The man who overcame hydrophobia by purchasing a vessel large enough to live on is the same man who got cut from his high school varsity team and responded by becoming the greatest basketball player who ever lived. Whatever Jordan feared, he eventually made himself confront it. Secret 2: He was cut from his high school team. The story is famous but consistently misreported. In his sophomore year at Laney High School, Jordan did not make the varsity basketball team. He was assigned to junior varsity instead. Jordan used that season as a laboratory. He worked at a level disproportionate to the competition around him and arrived at his junior year as a different player. By his senior year, legendary University of North Carolina coach Dean Smith personally offered him a scholarship after watching him at a summer camp. What the Laney High School story actually demonstrates is the specific nature of Jordan's competitive psychology. Most people who face rejection of that kind either accept the assessment or walk away from the pursuit entirely. Jordan did neither. He treated the varsity coach's decision as incomplete information rather than a final verdict, and spent the following year generating enough counter-evidence to make the original assessment irrelevant. That same psychology, the refusal to accept any external evaluation of his ceiling as binding, is the one that produced 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and a career that redefined what the word dominance meant in professional sport. The rejection at Laney did not make Jordan great, but it accelerated the process by which he decided to become great. He cited it as a motivating reference point for the rest of his career. Secret 3: The pizza that changed the 1997 Finals. Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals. Bulls vs. Jazz. Series tied 2 games apiece. One of the most important games in Finals history about to be played. The night before, Jordan ordered pizza from the only delivery service open in Salt Lake City. Several members of his entourage refused it, claiming the food seemed off. Jordan ate it anyway. By morning, he was severely ill. His team did not know if he would play. He played. He scored 38 points. He made the decisive three-pointer in the final minutes and had to be supported by teammates after the buzzer. The flu game is one of the most referenced performances in sports history. The pizza is the detail that explains why the question of whether he would even take the court that night was genuine. Secret 4: The retirement that was never fully explained. In October 1993, Michael Jordan retired from basketball at 30 years old. Third consecutive championship. At the absolute peak of the sport. The official explanation was the murder of his father, James Jordan, 3 months earlier, combined with a genuine loss of motivation. Jordan said he wanted to fulfill his father's dream of watching him play baseball, but a conspiracy theory refused to disappear. The NBA had effectively suspended Jordan over his gambling habits, which were well documented. The theory held that Commissioner David Stern had privately forced Jordan out to avoid a public suspension that would damage the league's most valuable asset. What makes the retirement story genuinely complicated is that both things can be true simultaneously. Jordan's gambling was real, documented, and serious enough that the NBA was investigating it. His grief over his father's murder was also real, documented, and serious enough that his teammates described watching him come apart in the months that followed. The conspiracy theory assumes these are competing explanations when they may both have been contributing factors. A man exhausted by grief, under investigation for conduct that had already embarrassed him publicly, and fresh from completing what he believed was his defining achievement, had multiple legitimate reasons to step away. The simplest explanation and the most human one are not necessarily the same thing. Jordan denied it. Stern denied it on camera for The Last Dance, calling it an urban legend with no basis in fact. Jordan's teammate Horace Grant denied it. Multiple Bulls chroniclers denied it. The evidence suggests the official version is true. The rumor's persistence reveals something else. The world found it more plausible that the NBA secretly removed its greatest player than that he had simply chosen to walk away. Secret 5: The baseball career nobody discusses honestly. When Jordan announced he was pursuing baseball, the reaction ranged from skepticism to mockery. A 30-year-old with no professional baseball experience attempting the minor leagues was widely described as a vanity project. Jordan signed with the White Sox organization and was assigned to Double-A Birmingham. He batted .202 with 3 home runs and 51 RBI across 127 games. For an elite athlete with no professional baseball background, attempting Double-A at 30, those numbers represent a genuine achievement. The White Sox farm coordinator said Jordan had the tools. What he lacked was the repetitions that players who had developed the sport since childhood possessed by the time they reached that level. Jordan described the baseball period as the most difficult athletic challenge of his life. That detail alone should reframe the conversation around what he actually attempted. Secret 6: The gambling problem. He acknowledged Jordan has never denied gambling. He has denied that gambling caused his retirement. Those are two different statements. Jordan has been documented gambling since high school. Throughout his NBA career, he played cards for significant sums, bet on golf at levels that drew media attention, and made casino visits the league monitored. The specific incidents that created legal problems were more serious. A $57,000 payment to a convicted cocaine dealer that Jordan initially called a loan and later admitted under oath was a gambling debt. The NBA conducted at least 2 gambling investigations during his career. Jordan's consistent position has been that he never bet on NBA games. That line has not been contradicted. Everything short of it is part of his acknowledged record. Secret 7: The cigar habit that started with a championship. Michael Jordan did not smoke cigars before 1991. The habit began the night the Bulls won their first championship. Jordan lit a cigar and found it suited the moment. For the next 3 decades, the image of Jordan with a cigar became as recognizable as the number 23. The detail reveals how Jordan constructed his public identity. He adopted the habit at the moment of his greatest achievement and maintained it as a continuous reference to that moment. Every cigar was a reminder to himself and a signal to everyone watching. Secret 8: The first billionaire player in NBA history. Jordan became the first former NBA player to become a billionaire. Forbes confirmed the threshold in 2014. By 2025, his net worth was estimated at approximately $3 billion. The Nike deal is the known story. The Air Jordan brand generates approximately $6 billion annually for Nike. Jordan receives royalties estimated in excess of $100 million per year from a deal signed in 1984 when he was a 21-year-old rookie for an initial $2.5 million. But the Charlotte Hornets ownership made the difference. Jordan became the first former NBA player to hold a majority ownership stake in a franchise in 2010. He sold the majority of that stake in 2023. The franchise, valued in part by his association with it, sold at a price that made the Nike royalties look like a starting point. The broader significance of Jordan's billionaire status is what it represents for the structure of athlete wealth. His career earnings from playing basketball totaled approximately $90 million. His Nike royalties since the original deal have generated multiples of that figure annually for decades. His ownership stake in the Hornets produced a return that neither basketball salary nor endorsements could have replicated. 3 entirely separate wealth streams, each built on the foundation of the original competitive dominance, compounding across 30 years into a figure that makes him not just the wealthiest former athlete in American sports, but a case study in how athletic celebrity can be converted into permanent generational capital. Secret 9: His father's murder. On July 23, 1993, James Jordan was shot and killed while sleeping in his car on a North Carolina highway. He was 56. His body was found weeks later in a South Carolina swamp. 2 men were convicted of the murder and sentenced to life in prison. The motive was robbery. They saw an expensive car with its engine running and its occupant asleep. They had no idea whose father they were killing. The timing produced widespread speculation about connections to Jordan's gambling. Multiple investigations reached the same conclusion: it was a robbery. Jordan announced his first retirement 3 months later. The last conversation he described having with his father was after Game 6 of the 1993 Finals. He told his father it was the greatest moment of his life. James Jordan said he was proud of him. Secret 10, the NASCAR team that won the Daytona 500 in 2020, Jordan announced he was forming a NASCAR Cup Series team with driver Denny Hamlin. The team was named 23XI Racing. Jordan was explicit about his motivation. NASCAR had almost no black ownership at the highest level, and he wanted to change that. In 2024, the team filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. After an 8-day trial in December 2025, the parties reached a settlement. Then in 2026, 23XI racing driver Tyler Reddick won the Daytona 500. The 23XI racing story also has a legal dimension that most coverage underplayed. The antitrust lawsuit filed in 2024 challenged the fundamental governance structure of NASCAR, arguing that the sanctioning body operated as an illegal monopoly that disadvantaged team owners relative to the organization controlling the sport. The lawsuit was filed alongside fellow team owner Curtis Castles and represented one of the most direct challenges to NASCAR's authority structure in the sport's modern history. The December 2025 settlement terms were not fully disclosed publicly, but the fact that Jordan was willing to sue the governing body of the sport he had just joined and win a settlement is entirely consistent with how he has operated in every competitive environment he has ever entered. Jordan's competitive instinct has always operated the same way regardless of domain. He identifies a structure he wants to influence, enters it, and eventually wins within it. The Daytona 500 is simply the latest example. Cut from his high school team. Afraid of water. A retirement the world never fully understood. A NASCAR team that won the Daytona 500. The highlight reel version of Michael Jordan is extraordinary. The version underneath it is more interesting. Subscribe for more.